All right, it's Thursday, May 2nd. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today on the daily chart, we end up with a 2-down hammer bar. So we took out the low of the previous day, just barely closed a little bit green. So it's a shooter bar from yesterday, followed by a hammer bar today. That's an actionable signal to the upside. But before I get into today's, intraday price action, let's kind of see what's happening here now on the chart. To me, all this action here in the last 2 weeks is just choppiness. And if we go to the weekly chart that we've been looking at for a while, we had this big red mother bar. And for a while, I've been talking about how we're going to get out of this bar now, since we started up, on that during the next week. It was a big red bar, and we have to get out of this bar. And if you really think about it, all this action last week and this week is just inside price action of this red bar. So I'm going to kind of, in my mind, zoom this whole thing out and call this whole area a big trading range. I can almost, draw a box around it, if you want to think of it this way. Something like this. This whole area here is just a big trading range that's unfolded, and you could easily come down and test the bottom of that range and fail and come back through it, or test it on top and come back through it, or at some point we'll break out and then get out of this big red bar. So that's kind of what's unfolding here at the moment. Let me erase that box, but that's kind of the way I'm seeing it. So today, obviously, when we had the shooter bar from yesterday, we were expecting the low of that to be taken out. We had 2 days to go in the week where we thought we were getting a 2-up weekly failure that came back through the midpoint of that bar after hitting the highs early in the week, and we can get to the lows of that week. And now it looks like that didn't follow through, and we have the hammer bar that projects a little higher into tomorrow. And given that Apple had strong earnings and the market's reacting favorably to that, and after hours is a little higher, you kind of expect the highs to be tested. So, it could be a good actionable signal to the upside. We have these targets to the top of the range, and then we will monitor price action, see if we break through it and can finally get out of this big red bar. That's kind of what's unfolding now in the big picture. On the monthly chart, we talked about how this could be just a 1-month pause after a big uptrend. And now, given the second day of the month, we're kind of green on the month and starting higher. We had a little test lower, and as long as that stays green and heads higher, then we're going to be biased to the upside context-wise. And that line is right here, almost near the low of yesterday's purple line. As long as we stay, let's say we go up a little bit, as long as we stay above this line, even if we get some pauses along the way and we come up here and we test the high of the range and pause, as long as we stay above the purple line, I'm biased to the upside. So things change, day to day, and that's kind of the way it works. And then in terms of the intraday price action, what happened was, the pre-market range was between the blue lines. Very first bar went down on bar number 1. I discussed how I bought some puts here, and the goal was to take out yesterday's low and the pre-market low, and that's exactly what price did. And I scaled out, set up a no-risk trade. I talked about how it came up and then tried down again and then started up, and I exited here with a small gain because, again, I watched this 15-minute chart over many stocks over a long period of time, and it's just kind of a feel for what I know needs to develop here. I mean, this needed to come through this area and then pause in an orderly way and then start down in order for that downward bias to really take us on a daily chart, to the bottom of this range, and it just wasn't doing that. And I saw a lot of other stocks strengthening. You see, that's the thing too. Sometimes you look at this SPY chart on it in isolation, and you wonder, was this little pause in here something to exit the short trade? And by itself, you might not know on the SPY, but when you're looking around the board, I follow all kinds of stocks here at the same time, and I see a lot of things like strengthening, then I kind of know the market as a whole is not really bearish at the moment. So that was another reason to exit. And you don't always see that when you kind of just do a pure SPY recap. But nevertheless, anyway, I discussed how I exited here, and I'd possibly re-enter if we wanted to come down with a red bar and test that low. It never happened. We went up, pause, up, took out the, this high of the day here, and then paused and kind of closed up there. And now after hours, like I said, with Apple's earnings and everything else, we're up on the day. So definitely a bias to the upside now. The monthly chart is starting up in the first 2 days. Daily chart has a target to the top of the range. I really want to see us break out of this consolidation area one way or the other. And I also know you can fail. So if we come up here and have a big red bar, then I'll be excited to get short to the bottom of the range again. So for now, I'm just playing this as a range. I'll nibble around with where price, today it was nibbling to the downside. And fortunately, we had enough space here to kind of scale out and set up an over-risk trade, or even take a base hit gain to the target. It was a pretty nice gain down here, even for a half hour. But other than that, there was nothing. We were below the midpoint of the prior day all day, so I'm not really looking to the long side. But given the fact that we closed with a shooter followed by a hammer, that leads us into tomorrow with a bias back to the upside. So I'll nibble to the upside and see how if our price deals with the top of the range. If we fail to get through that, then maybe we get, we go down again. So we're kind of just starting the month out right near the purple line here, trying to figure out whether it goes up or down. But for now, the bias goes back to the upside. So anyway, that's a recap for today. We have 1 day to go in the week. Since time is important in the analysis, every week the first day of the week gives us more time to reach our targets. Now with 1 day to go, and the fact that we'll probably gap up a little bit tomorrow, just doesn't look like this 2-up failure is going to reach its target. So when any kind of an expectation to a target is not reached, it gets exciting to go the other way, and that's what's kind of developing here. We might end up with a nice hammer bar on the weekly chart, which would, even if it closes a little red, the hammer look, will kind of expect us to head higher into next week. And again, we still have that quarterly, chart that I've been discussing in the big picture, looking for us to eventually get back to new highs. So, I've been waiting for that weekly chart to kind of turn back to the upside. This was a kind of a start, getting a 2-up week that we then immediately failed. So I can't consider it really turning to the upside yet. But if we close the week with a hammer bar and follow through between these two bars, that could be the start of kind of consolidation that breaks to the upside. So, I've been waiting for that to really get comfortable to the buy side, and we just might have that today in terms of the way this bar closed. And we'll see how the follow through unfolds, tomorrow and into next week. But definitely thinking up now, unless something, doesn't get there and goes down tomorrow. But towards the end of the week, I think it looks like this shooter followed by hammer, that's an actionable signal to the upside on the daily chart. So let's see if we get some directional move back up, and let's see if we can take this whole trend to the downside, pause, and then maybe start the whole uptrend again in the stock market. We'll find out.